So here we are. Can you believe?
I gotta give you a thumbs up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the snap is to sync everything, and then give it a moment, and then I'll give you a thumbs up. All
Okay,
right.
sorry.
All right, I'll do it again.
Here we are.
Hello.
The end of January.
Goodness gracious, January's flown by.
I know, it's crazy.
It is.
How did that happen?
I don't know, but it happens.
It was like Happy New Year, and then boom, it's
That's
the end
right.
of the month.
That's right. And get to work. Everything back to normal
Yes.
and everything. So yes, we've been going through podcasts this month on surrender. We hope that you've enjoyed it.
Yes, we have. And, we started out talking about just a new way of living.
Yeah.
And it really is. So if you haven't listened to, starting back with episode 118, where we just dive into there's a better way to live our life.
Yes.
And, we think new year, new you, but we can't be new on our own.
No.
And so make sure you go back and listen to that. And so we've also talked about the lies that we believe and how we deceive ourselves. And then it's January. And so probably one of the biggest struggles of January is just loneliness. It's cold.
Yes.
Nothing's going on. We're all at home, alone.
Yes.
It's cloudy.
Isolated a bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just depressing. So go back and listen to 118, 119, 20, and 120. And then today it's episode 121.
That's right. That's right. And so we're going to be talking today on the feelings of surrender when they bring shame. And there is really nothing that we cover that we haven't dealt with ourselves, basically. So I just wanted to be clear in that, and that just as I text Gwen and Pam, I think sometime last week, and just said, God is just so working with me on surrender, and feeling shameful that I have to surrender it again and again and again.
Yes.
And then I take it back, and then I have to surrender it again. And then after a while, you start to feel a little shameful about that.
Yes.
Like, here I am, God, again, feeling shameful.
It can be so many things that make us feel shame.
Yes.
Sometimes for me it's, I've been through 2 divorces, and so it's like, I'm married to my 3rd husband, and now that my grandchildren are old enough to start figuring it out, they're like, wait a minute,
Right.
wait a minute, because there's other granddads, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just feel such shame when I have to explain that.
Right.
Well, me.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. They're like, I don't get it. What happened? And my son is always like, well, talk about it when you're older. But that makes me feel shame and embarrassed that I have to tell them that sometimes. And really, God has used it, and we're going to talk about that. But, for some people, shame is over, something you did as a teenager, and you carry it forever, or something that happened when you were a child, or sometimes it's something that happened to you, and then sometimes it's a poor decision you've made.
Right.
Sometimes it's something you just can't break free of, and so you feel shame over it.
That's right. And really, at the point where we need to surrender, it's almost the most tender and scary part of our life. It is. So you feel shame, but what we talk a lot about on this podcast is what adjustments do we need to make, and what exchanges, and where do we need to exchange. And one thing that God's really been working with me on is the mindset of surrender, as far as laying that down at God's feet, but exchanging something, laying it down, giving it. Just imagine God's hand reaching out to yours, and you're exchanging all the things that are bringing you shame, whatever, if it's a poor decision or something that happened to you, and He's giving His peace in exchange for that surrender of that to Him.
So our hands have to be free.
That's right.
To receive what He wants to give us. So we have to lay it down, or let it drop, right? At the foot of the cross. And you know what? We're not alone in this shame game, right? Like, we're not the first ones to experience that. It goes all the way back to Adam and Eve.
Oh, absolutely.
And the shame that they felt.
Yes.
Can you remember they even tried to cover themselves?
That's right.
With
the
fig
fig
leaves.
leaves.
It's
Yeah.
like, let me hide.
And then what did they do? They blamed each other.
Yes.
The man, of course, Adam blamed Eve, then Eve blamed the serpent, and we start blaming everybody else when we have to take control, the control that we think we have, and lay it down at the cross. That's surrender of the situation and just lay it down before. And so it started at Adam and Eve, and it's addressed throughout the Bible. But God had me in Psalms 25 when he addressed, not exactly sure, to be honest, if it was David that penned this psalm. And it says, "To you, O Lord, lift up my soul. Oh my God, in you I have unwavering trust, and I rely on you with steadfast confidence." And then it says, "Do not let me be ashamed, or my hope in you be disappointed. Do not let my enemies triumph over me." It says, "Indeed, none of those who wait expectantly on you shall ever be ashamed."
Wow.
And so to me, it was like God was saying, this is the foundation, is that you have to lift up your soul to me. The foundation of everything. You have to have unwavering trust, which you know that I've repeatedly said, I was on a trust journey. And that now I know I have to have that unwavering trust in him and that steadfast confidence that God's going to take care of it.
Yes.
He's going to take care of it. And so that's the foundation of it is, do you believe that do you trust God in him being able to handle the shame that you have?
Yes. I was just talking to a client this morning, and we're working through a situation that she's walking through, and just talking about how to trust God.
Yes.
With situations and with people, with relationships, with our children, all of those things. And like, how do you do that?
Right.
How do you give it to him?
Yes.
And trust him with it. And it's not always easy. And so many times we really do have to practice. It's a practice where we get on our knees and we say, "Okay, God, I am giving this to you."
Right.
And you pray and you talk to him about it and you lay it down and you get up and go about your day. And before you know it, you're carrying that same thing again, that same shame, that same struggle, that same doubt. And so you just go back.
Yeah.
And you get back down on your knees. And you say, "I'm so sorry. I picked it back up." And you lay it back down. And sometimes it takes doing that over and over and over again.
Because if I had to be honest, that's where I do find my shame, is having to do it over and over again. But I mean, it's just like the Bible talks about forgiveness, 70 times 7. I think the same thing for surrender.
Yes.
Is it just has to happen. It may have to happen every hour or every couple of hours, but there is no shame in having to go back and resurrender that at all.
Yes. And especially if we've talked to God about it and confessed it. And I love that in 1 John 1:9 it says, "If we confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness."
Yeah.
And so all we have to do is just talk to him about it, and boom, he forgives us.
Yeah.
Grace.
Yeah.
Grace upon grace.
Grace upon grace. And so I think that today it's a good question is what do you have your hope in? What is your hope in? And you might say, is your hope in the circumstance you're in? You're hoping that your circumstances get better. You might be finding yourself like, you tell us several times, my marriages didn't work out, but God taught you not to put your hope in that circumstance, and you've taught us that.
Yes.
So if your hope is in your circumstances, or your hope is in this world, or your hope is in yourself, then we find ourselves full of shame. It's when we put our hope in him that we can literally find ourselves surrendering it to him. Like, we just put our hope in him, that he's going to make the situation right. He tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We say that a lot and kind of throw that around, but wherever you are, whatever you're going through right now, you can trust and rely on him in steadfast confidence. And this Psalms 25, take time to go back and read it, because this is an intense internal struggle with being able to surrender, with shame, in context of shame. So go back and read Psalms 25. If you're listening to this now, just take a second afterwards to just read it, because this struggle comes out at the end. It says, "Do not let me be ashamed or disappointed, for I have taken refuge in you.
So good.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes we think our shame makes us think that we can't take refuge
That's right.
in God.
Absolutely. That we're not worthy of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that he's mad at us.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that he doesn't love us like he loves others because we're such a disappointment. So we can start to believe all kind of things. And so one of my favorite characters in the Bible, no, it's not a character, he's an actual person.
A Bible person.
Yes, but Peter, I love Peter. And, you know, he experienced shame when he denied Jesus 3 times. He's like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus told him he was going to, and he's like,
No way. Yeah.
I would
Never do that.
and he did. And then when we see Peter again and we see Jesus again after the resurrection, Jesus is cooking breakfast for Peter.
Yeah.
You know, like not throwing stones at him,
No.
but getting ready to feed him,
Yeah.
you know, and talking to him. And he says, do you love me, Peter? You know, then go about my business. You know what I mean? Feed my sheep, tend my lambs. I love that. And there is he doesn't take a few minutes and say, I told you.
Right.
I
Or get on
told
him or make
you
him
were
feel
going to
less
disappoint
than.
me and let me down. I knew you would shame and disgrace me. You know, like he didn't do that at all. He just loved
Such
him.
a good example. I mean, he didn't make him feel less than, or he sat. Can you imagine after whatever you've done, if you're in a place of like dire, there's no way that he could love me. Jesus cooked breakfast for Peter.
Yes.
And he wants to do the same for you. I mean, we're
Yes.
no different. That's just amazing. That's one of my favorite places in the Bible to read about, because no matter what we do, Jesus is there just over the hot coals, sitting there making breakfast
Yes.
for us.
Yeah. So part of your struggle probably as you're dealing with shame and as you try to figure out how in the world do I release this, probably what's happening is your thoughts are swirling. And, you know, you may be having a great day or something comes along and all of a sudden you're reminded about this shame.
Yeah.
You know, and here it comes back. You know, I think it's, we need to be aware of what Satan uses against us. Like, I know that he's going to use, you know, my failures against me. And so just to be ready for that attack and to be able to take that thought captive and go, okay, this is not truth.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in the Bible that Jesus says Pam is a failure. There's no time has he come to me and told me that or made me. Instead, he says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that I am his masterpiece, that I am his beloved, that I am his, and that he is mine, and that he loves me with an everlasting love. That's truth.
Yeah.
So I have to take the lies, the thoughts that are lies, captive, right, and discard those.
That's right.
And so, you know, for me, the easiest way to do that is to say, who told you that, Pam? Who told you that? And if I can't answer that God told me that this is a truth that I can find in God's word, then I know it's a lie.
Yeah. So
And
good.
I know it's straight from Satan, and that I can just go and tell him to go straight back to hell, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I can be done with that. I don't have to deal with that. But it starts with what's up here.
Oh, it's a war.
And
in
being
our
mindful.
minds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
war up there. Yeah. The
Yes.
biggest war that we face, I think it's been said, is between our 2 ears. It's the mind.
Yes,
It is.
for sure.
It is. And I think just at a place where you're just honest with God, that you've got to get before him. And if you've not been honest about what you feel shame about, then just take a second. Like Pam said, while you're down there on your knees,
Yeah.
just be honest with him and take a second to be able, because that is really where the ultimate form of surrender is just being able just to take everything from your chest and take it off of there and just say everything that's on your mind. So many times in the Bible we've covered this where you know, he allows Elijah in 1 Kings 19 to be honest about where he is and what's going on in his life. And then again in Mark 9, when the child who was demon possessed, the man brought the child to him and says, you know, if you're able to do something, Jesus, if you're able to do something, would you please do it? And Jesus said to him, what do you mean if? Right?
Yeah.
What do you mean if? And it says, if you're able to believe, all things are possible. And so, and the man just said, I do believe, but help me with my unbelief. He was being honest
Yes.
with
So
God.
good. Yeah.
I mean, with Jesus. He was being honest. Like, I do believe you. And isn't that like all of us, just to be honest? Like, you know, we do believe, but we have some of that unbelief that creeps in it a lot for me. Not a lot for Pam, but
Yes, it
yeah.
does
But
a
for
lot.
me, like this is like a daily prayer. Help me with my unbelief.
Yes.
That you're really going to work this situation out for good for me. That I'm not going to feel the shame, and shame is from the devil.
And so here's what happens. Let's get honest just right now. Here's what really happens. Like if Kim were to call me and say, I'm struggling with shame, then I would speak truth over Kim. And everything that she said that didn't line up with the scripture, I would call it out.
You would.
I would call it out.
Yeah.
And I would say, that is not true, Kim. Here's what the truth is, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I would be able to do that so clearly
But
with
not
her.
when it's us.
Yeah, but when it's my shame.
Yeah.
It's like I can't hear that truth. Sometimes it's almost like we have blinders on,
Absolutely.
or like just blind spots, I guess, where we just lose sight
Yes.
of what's truth, and we focus on that issue, that struggle, that shame, and it becomes so big that it's all we can see.
That's right.
We can't see all the goodness of the Lord around
No.
it,
No.
you know. And so sometimes you need to ask someone. You need to go to somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling. I am stuck. I am caught up in this. I need to talk to you about it. And let them
Absolutely.
kind of help walk you through what is truth. How can you move forward? That's why, you know, I'm just a huge advocate of having a mentor. I think that's so important. There are people who know the Bible more than you. There are people who know how to have a relationship with Jesus more than you. And get somebody to walk alongside you, because it will help you grow deeper. And then also to have a coach.
Yes.
I mean, there are so many things. I would never take the steps forward
Never.
if I didn't have someone walking along beside me. And
right.
could I? Yeah, yes, I could. The question is, would I?
Yeah.
And it's probably not. I would probably stay stuck instead of, but when somebody else points out my blind spot, I have to address it, right?
Yeah.
And so, and deal with it. So, but that's why I encourage you to do that. It's because it makes such a difference
Yeah.
to help you see, I've been believing that. I mean, just last year, I had a coach call out a lie, and I'm like, I have believed that my whole life.
That's right. Yeah.
My whole life. Up until last year, I was claiming it as truth,
Yes.
and it was not true.
That's right.
And I'm like, what in the world?
That's right.
It never even dawned on me.
Yes, and
that it
that's what
wasn't
we just find such good success through our mentorship program that we do. And so we'd love for you to just hop over to engageformore.com and find out more about our coaching program and our mentorship program, because mentorship is doing life with the people coming alongside, and we have something called the Circle that you would definitely want to find out more about. But we all have coaches ourselves, and we are coaches ourselves, and we just need, those blind spots are hard.
Yes,
You know,
for sure.
just yesterday I was talking with one of my clients about something just like Pam had, and I was like, boy, I just told you everything that I needed to tell myself. Like I'm not believing it myself. And you know, we just need that. If you don't have somebody, please hop on over to engageformore.com to find out more about that as well.
Yeah, we'd love to just talk to you.
Yes.
For sure. And here's the other thing too that we want to address before we wrap this up is that God is faithful to use whatever we go through.
Yeah.
And so if you're dealing with shame, if you're carrying it, when you surrender that situation to the Lord, He will use it for good. And when I went through my second divorce is when God really got my attention. It's when I was laying on the floor crying out to Him, feeling like I had nothing but Him, that He really did show up. And in that hard, difficult season is when I learned how to have a relationship with Him and how to walk with Him and talk with Him in ways I never even knew were even possible. And so for me personally, it made all the difference in the world. But I will tell you too that because I've been through that, it's opened the door for me to come alongside a lot of different women that probably would have never talked to me
Right.
if they hadn't already known what I had been through in my life.
Yes.
And so God uses that to say, like, she's not perfect either.
No.
And I can still have a relationship with her. I can still use her. And that's what he wants to say to you too. And so it's when we're willing to share our struggles, I mean, God can use that.
Absolutely.
Right. If we're just showing up perfect all the time, he really can't use us.
That's
you
right.
know? So embrace the great big mess that you are.
Right. That's right. That's right. And if you think you've tuned in to some people who think they're perfect, we definitely are not. But as we close out today, I just want to leave you with two questions that God's been asking me. I mean, he really has. And number one is, what are you afraid for God to see? So if you feel shameful, what are you afraid for him to see? Maybe we haven't even identified exactly what is bringing you shame, or maybe it's just you haven't pulled those things out. And sometimes we just have to pull it all to the surface. So what are you afraid for God to see? And then what am I holding back? What are we, I'm famous for compartmentalizing. I like to put things in different buckets. But what am I holding back behind me that I just don't want to even pull out for God to see? I don't even want God to even address that with me. Today is the day to surrender it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. He already knows.
He already knows. He already
really not
knows.
Keeping it a secret.
But this year, let's not keep the baggage behind us. Yeah. Let's bring it out, put it on the table, and address it. So we are not living in the jail cell with the door, unlocked, and we don't think that we can get over. This is where we're going to unlock the jail cell.
Yes.
We're going to open the door to it and live in freedom.
Yes. Freedom.
That's
Yay.
right.
That's a great place to be. So,
yes.
Hey, if you are not on our email list, get to our website and make sure that you get on there. We send out information about resources and we send encouragement, and we want to stay in touch with you. So hop over to engageformore.com and get on our email list.
That's right. We thank you for joining us today.
We'll be back next week for more.
That's right.